Hey everybody, here for my weekly kind of just hey, what's attitude am I seeing this week, and what does it look like? Um, so, uh, lots been going on, which is really cool. But one thing I want to specifically look at, as I was thinking about, hey, which attitude am I going to talk about this week, and um, how have I seen it play out, and what kind of aspect of this attitude do I want to talk about? Because the attitudes are like each one of them. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of depth to each one of them. Um, However, the surface level pieces can make a big difference. And a lot of people want like, "Hey Joe, what's the like super theory behind X, Y, and Z?" Debbie and I have this conversation often because she's curious. But most of the change, most of the power comes from the simplicity of just kind of that surface level stuff because we're not doing it, and that's why. So if we do this level, surface level pieces of, like, find of the attitudes, we can find great change. Right? If you download the PDF or if you watch these videos I've been doing, um, the things in there, just to kind of like start shifting your mind around, hey, maybe this is the area of focus I need. We can start focusing our energy on it. It's a big thing. It's a big deal. And a lot of times we just kind of push that to the side and be like, that's not that big of a deal. I don't know. But what I want you to hear is that it is a big deal. I had a bunch of calls this week for another group that I was actually invited to come speak to, and we got through the thing, and I asked some questions and had them working on their money mindset and kind of like where they learned about money for the first time and all this stuff. The call like got to the point where it ended, so I'm like, hey, listen, what I'll do is I'll take 15 minutes for each of you, and let's finish this up because I never want to leave them just kind of hanging. Um, so as we did that, and through the process, see patterns when I work with people, which is a lot of fun. I love it. Like, it's been a busy week, but it's been so fulfilling. And seeing what they're struggling with, what I gave to all of them were just real simple pieces. It wasn't like rocket science or some like really in depth. One person said, "Oh, I thought it was gonna be a lot harder than this." I'm like, "No, that's the cool thing." Like, so these little pieces are really important, right? The structure is important because without it, then we feel lost. We feel like we can't make it. We feel like that it's too hard to get to that next piece. We feel like it's too hard to change what's going on now for what we want to go or where we want to go next. And it's a problem, especially in the personal development and coaching world. People show up and they're expecting, some mind blowing experience. And then when they don't get it, they're kind of disappointed. And it, it makes a big difference, right? Don't look for that mind blowing stuff. That in the simplicity of things and the simplicity of ideas, there's a lot of complexity there. A lot of it we take for granted or we don't dive into and look at. So as you embark on this journey with me, really look at the simplicity of what I'm presenting. I know there's a lot of complexity behind it, but do the simple things because in the simple things you'll start to see the progress in life faster than anything else. Which leads me to today's really discussion, and it's about that simplicity, right? Two words that will change everything. And I have my clients do this all the time, and it messes with them every single time. But the two words that will change everything for you is thank you. When people give you money, when people give you services, when people do something for you, when people want to like celebrate you and cheer you on, we've been programmed to come up with some reason why we have to justify what they're doing is right in our minds. So we'll verbally express that to them. Oh, blah, 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 blah. I can't even think of crazy excuses. But we come up with these ideas in our heads, and we're like, oh, we can't just say thank you because thank you is not enough. Well, then what's enough if thank you is not enough? But if you think about it, do any of these situations really warrant more than a thank you? Thank you is actually very powerful on its own. The problem is, again, we go back to our brains, and our brains are freaking out and be like, I can't just say thank you because I have to explain why, blah, 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 blah. But I'm here to say today that that's a lie. And that's the part that gets you every time. Like, that's the part that messes with your brain so much because you have to, we get in this mode of like, we got to explain why we do what we're doing. We got to come up with some grand idea of like, someone, I had a client, this was a couple years ago, where she was gifted a bunch of money. And she texts me and she's like, Joe, I'm freaking out here because I got all this money. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, go you. Like, that's awesome. I'm like, well, what'd you say to them? I don't remember her response, but it wasn't. It was like, just to like, are you sure? Like, we question it. I think that's what happened. Like, she's like, I don't know. I questioned it. To be like, are you sure that like this is right? Like, I mean, it was a large amount, right? We question. We like, why us? Someone gives us money, and they're like, why us? Like, is this some trap? Is this you're trying to prank me? Are you like, think about like where we go. So I texted her back and I said, we'll just say thank you. And just leave it at that. She's like, oh, okay. Because we can't, in our brains, we have such a hard time with people celebrating us. And that's really what's happening when they're giving us things. So really all this is tied to the attitude of accomplishment, right? And if you look back past videos and past newsletters and stuff, I talked about like you stepping up and celebrating yourself. I talked about people celebrating you. But part of that celebration of them is being seen as yourself without having to justify why you showed up as yourself. That you can simply say thank you and that be enough. Because if we can't let it be enough, then we got to continue to one up ourselves and we're pushing away like the goodness that they're trying to help us with. And then we just push that energy away. And then that energy is money. And we start getting this. And we start getting hesitant. It's like, no. Right? Nobody wants to like show up to someone doing that. But if we look at the attitude of accomplishment, it's all about celebration. Celebrating you, celebrating others, right? There's that in the service for us. But there's this other piece too of letting them do stuff for us. I was on a podcast interview this last week. And he was talking about this, like this conversation came up. He was talking about this and he had launched a book in the middle of a pandemic. So it was like, you can't have like a big like book launching party. And he's like, no big deal. It's like, I got it on, did really well, hit like #1 bestseller, these things. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. He's like, yeah. He's like, but when I set it up, he's like, things I didn't even think about before I set it up. But when I set it up, he's like, my wife went and bought like a bottle of wine and bought a cake. Right? She was like all in it for him. She's like, yeah, you did this. But for him, it was just like, well, I launched a book. Right? We're not thinking. We're like these mundane things that we're doing. The things that we do in our jobs, in our businesses. Right? We hit a milestone. But what we've done is we've said, that's not good enough until I hit X amount of money. Versus just allowing it to happen. So a great reflector of all this, tie it all up. A great reflector of all this. Simply allow people to celebrate you. Accept the thank yous as enough for what you're doing. If you do that, it's going to be really hard at first to just simply say thank you. And I'm saying say thank you and nothing more. And if you do that, you'll start to see power in this accomplishment energy that other people are trying to send your way, that you're pushing away because you have to explain away why you did what you did. Stop it. Like literally stop explaining away what you did. Just say thank you and then move on to the next thing. You're not being ungrateful for it, I promise. You're showing a lot of gratitude, saying thank you. It's incredibly powerful. If you want to change the way you're celebrating you, if you want to change the way money's coming in, if you want to allow people to celebrate you, and just leave yourself there open to receive that celebration and bask in that yummy accomplishment energy. Thank you is all you need to say. So until next week, see you later.